Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Get the Mic, the only show where your hosts on the left, Owl,
And on the right, Brock.
dissect fiction for its mythological significance. Today, as usual, we're talking about Dragon Ball, and we've just wrapped up the Muscle Tower arc, and we need to kind of tie up some loose ends, such as where the Dragon Ball go, what's going to happen to Ader's bomb, all that kind of stuff. But before we get there, I think Brock has a little bit to say about some certain happenings in the community.
Yeah, we had a recent sort of sudden change to some of the functioning in YouTube where the dislike button really isn't functional anymore. It's not a public, it's not a forward-facing option for people. I think that we've seen it used a lot recently with people who just don't really agree with what the algorithm says people should be interested in, right? And I know that we've been kind of a victim in the past of, I would say, a somewhat unfair use of the dislike system. Like one of our videos got posted in an unrelated thread, and people didn't understand what they were seeing until they obviously didn't like that they were stumbling into our content. But I would much rather have those dislikes than not have people have the option to dislike our videos. I mean, that's something that I just kind of felt like needs to be said on the platform right now by people.
I mean, yeah, by anyone that can say it. I mean, even our meager double digit audience, I would say it's worth hearing that we, as a small YouTube creator, do not feel protected nor empowered by the removal of the dislike feature. Or rather, it's not removed, but the counter that's associated with the dislikes.
I mean, it's
One of our videos, it's true, got posted on a popular video, not by us, but nonetheless got ratioed as a result. But
yeah, I mean that's sort of the looming threat, I guess, for everybody whenever the free market is applied to public opinion, right? But I don't think that removing people's ability to disagree or to just give a negative reaction is something that solves any problems. I don't think it does anything more than create problems.
yeah, no, definitely.
So I just wanted to call that
It's
out
our little
because
PSA. Hey, get the mic PSA. YouTube, you're bad. You are not a moralizing force.
find us on Rumble.
To put it politely, you are not a moralizing force.
That's correct.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into the episode then. I don't think we have any other addendums.
Nope.
So, the last thing we saw was kind of the destruction of Muscle Tower, which was that extrapolation of thuggery, despotism that was represented by General White, and what lives on past General White here is that good spirit, right, that he locked away and sequestered off in his tower. And this episode is called Imminent Danger, Go For It, Ha-chan, or I think The Secrets of Dr. Flappe, I think is the English
Yeah,
name.
the secret of Dr. Flappe. So we're kind of told from the beginning that there's something going on with this doctor that they talk about right after
Well, hold
the
on, before we get
revelation.
there, let's just kind of go over what's happening. So they've all
Right.
returned to Sano's house. Goku is gorging himself on food, and everyone is kind of surprised.
He just swallows a loaf of bread whole.
Yes.
I mean, imagine seeing that in person. They're all just shocked.
Yeah, and I also want to say that it's the sun has risen and the snow is pristine and pure, and it's portrayed as pure again rather than that like malleable state that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, it shows a lot of those little reflections of light coming off of it, right? It's sort of this twinkling effect on the snow.
And so they ask about the Dragon Ball. Where's the Dragon Ball gone? And it's revealed that Ader had it all along. Now, what do you think about that, Brock? That it happened to be that the manifestation of benevolence is the thing that has found and kept the wisdom of the Dragon Ball even secret from the ego despot that is General White.
Well, the first thing that I want to point to is that translation of meekness, right? The meek will inherit the earth. I think that what it's saying, it's not just that that Ader here had the Dragon Ball all along. It's that White had the Dragon Ball all along, right? He had the potential for the Dragon Ball within himself all along, and he couldn't realize it, and so he had locked it away and created this hard exterior, this sort of monument to his arrogance, rather than looking inward to find that that wisdom that he had within himself, right?
Or maybe not even the wisdom in himself, but the wisdom gained by following a moral path, which is what kind of Ader represented for him, right? He was the voice of moralism in his existence. Kind of the opposite of Bouillon, right?
Right, kind of like a Jiminy Cricket.
And so he had it all along. He has the what is it? The conscience medallion that Jiminy Cricket gets at the end, that gold star, right? He has this gold star,
Hmm.
two gold stars actually, in this ball. He had it all along. And Ader explains that if he gave it to General White, he would have killed all the villagers.
Right, it wasn't something that he deserved.
And so we see that Ader had been acting in course and for the right reasons the whole time. And
Hmm.
that's kind of what we get in the very beginning of this episode. And so as a result, before I would say it's important to note that the villagers, the village chief, Mr. Chief,
Mr.
Mr.
Village
Village,
Chief.
he was very afraid of Ader. And I would say many of the villagers probably are as well. But after this, he's kind of embraced, and I think it's to say a couple things. And here we do see a flashback to when we are revealed to see the bomb in Ader's body placed by the Red Ribbon Army as a last means of obedience. But
Hmm.
before that, the village chief invites Ader and son Goku to live with him.
Right, and similar to what we saw before with the Ox King, Goku says, "No, I can't stay. I can't live here. I'm on a journey." Right, his journey being that this isn't the Dragon Ball he was looking for. He's looking for a different Dragon Ball for a different purpose. It's interesting how it
And
parallels
what
that.
purpose is that? Let's be as specific as we can. It's his grandfather's memento, right? To mean that it's symbolic of the wisdom his grandfather had passed down. He wants to cling on to that. There's a point when he stops trying to get the 4-star
Right.
ball.
Well,
We'll
the
see.
grandfather's wisdom is an embodied wisdom, right? It's what you could call a participatory knowing or an embodied knowledge. And so what he's looking for isn't necessarily a hypothetical thing. He has to be on the path to get the Dragon Ball.
Yes, yes. And but I want to say his desire to get it is much higher in this journey in particular, because that which he seeks is his salvation in the end, and we're going to see how this whole story ends probably 20 episodes from now, maybe 30 episodes from now.
Oh, I remember what you're talking about. It's
Yeah.
definitely it all leads up to a moment of why it is so necessarily so important that that Dragon Ball is there for him. But it's interesting too because I don't remember if it's in this scene necessarily, but Goku kind of specifies that he's not necessarily trying to hang on to it. He tries to leave the balls behind multiple times. He asks
Not hang
Sano.
on to that exactly. Hang
He,
on to only the 4-star
yeah,
ball.
he's not trying to collect Dragon Balls right now. That's not what he's doing. He's just happening upon them on the way.
But the thing is this is another thing I think spelled out by the adage that the opportunity lurks where responsibility has been abdicated, because Goku attempts to leave these behind, but no one is willing to bear the responsibility of the wisdom he's trying to impart, and so he must continue to bear them.
Right. Well,
But it gets better. It gets better. This is just the first step in the Red Ribbon arc, and it gets so much better than this. But, anyways, want to kind of get back to this. So, we see the village chief invite them. Ader explains that there's a bomb in his chest. He doesn't know when it will go off. He doesn't want to endanger anyone. We see a flashback to that. We also see Murasaki has still survived, and additionally, Goku's dragon radar has been broken. Just
Yeah,
to
it's
recap all the scenes I think that are in this
yeah,
collection.
there's a lot of establishing at the beginning of this episode. Um I want something that I want to point out sort of tangentially about Ader is that um I guess I could kind of liken it to think of a biblical angel and the whole be not afraid thing, right? Where Ader is this manifestation of this cosmic wisdom and carries a dragon ball with him, and when they see
But
him,
within an let's say already, because he's undead, right?
right.
And I want to mention that because I think it's to say that White has already killed the moralizing part of himself,
Mhm.
and it's only now been recreated in his act of creation of Ader. That's how it manifested itself. And
Right.
now it's instantiated in Ader because that divine act of creation was more than the pathological mode of
Yeah,
being
more than
white.
that spirit, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and so he has created this almost cosmic being, right? That's terrifying but also amazing at the same time. It's sort of both ends of the spectrum. And so as they witness him and they're terrified by him, they're also sort of in awe of him because of his strength and also his goodness. And that he would tell them like, I don't want to put you in danger because of the inherent sort of danger of what I am, right? There's a certain chaos to that higher level being, right? That's like those
Well,
ideas transcend peoples, right?
it's to say that um because the act of creation of white was a force of will, right? That will can also destroy what Ader is, which is that disembodied form, right? Which is still controlled by the Red Ribbon Army because the ideological spirit which possessed white is that which is the corrupting spirit versus that creative spirit.
Mhm.
And that seed that was planted in him, let's say that black dot in the white paisley, is able to destroy the whole thing.
Right, and he sort of has to reconcile that now so he can step outside of the margin, right? So that he can be accepted sort of into a stability.
Into a society.
Yeah.
Right, because he cannot if the ideological explosion is waiting beneath the surface. And so, um, the village chief tells him about Dr. Flap. And Dr. Flap is a recluse professor in the mountains, and he can remove the bomb, he can fix Goku's radar. I think that's it. Maybe there's
He's
one
kind
more
of
thing.
described as a tinkerer. They say that he's repaired clocks and different devices for people and that he's incredibly intelligent, right?
Yes. And so the three of them, Ader, Sano, and Goku, go on a journey to find Dr. Flap. And meanwhile, Murasaki has caught up and he is again stalking our heroes. The first thing that happens is Murasaki is using, and I think this is actually pretty important, is the false tree bark he uses that Goku then pees upon.
Hmm.
Now, why would Goku pee upon that particular tree? Is it just funny? Or is it to say something?
It's really funny to me just to think that it's like Murasaki is a ninja. Like first off, just look at it symbolically, right? Where you see that he's a ninja in a frozen wasteland, and he's trying to make himself appear as part of the environment, like he fits in with the nature here, right? And this is outside of his nature. It's sort of like
Well, we saw his nature, right, nestled away in the forest,
yeah, he's
inside.
not that self sufficient, right? He's more of a he's he's more comfortable subordinate within a hierarchy rather than sort of carrying himself along, and so he's really pretending to be like the trees are. He's pretending to be strong. He's pretending like he fits in, right? And that is what, of course, gets him peed upon because Goku sees him as essentially what he's pretending to be, which is just in
Well, I think it's to say that Goku's heroic and truthful spirit spots out deception innately and subconsciously. And so Goku chose that tree because of the spirit he represents, whether he is conscious of it or not. And the deception, which Murasaki represents, and we actually need
Well,
to
we see this
pause.
because he always reveals himself in response to deception, right?
Well, yes, but I also need to say, and this is another example of it.
Hmm.
We need to say what Murasaki represents, how he survived, and I know this is a filler episode, and I know I don't think Murasaki actually survives in the manga past the point of Muscle Tower's destruction, but that's
It
beside
it
the
does
point.
work though. It does fit
It
in.
it does fit in because deceit. Why would his deceit live on past the point of his idealized self, Metallatron, right? His idealized despotism, rule by strength, Bouillon, his shadowy self, right? Why would Murasaki live and not other minions of his?
Well, Murasaki's a persona, right? He's a he's playing himself out as a character, right? He's creating a persona that people will talk about.
You
And
could
whenever we first get introduced to him, right, it's talking about him from the third person, where it's saying, Murasaki, you should fear him.
right, you could say that he's so instantiated
Right.
that he is more substantial than the other of General White's lackeys.
Well, he's become more of a meme or a myth, right? Where he's created a name for himself, you could say. And so this is you could view this almost as tied into that reputation of what that despotism can be on the nose.
Yeah, and it in that, let's say, even after a despot falls, the lies that person is told still propagate onward.
Hmm.
That's the nature of the thought warfare versus the simple by the sword, right? That's why the pen is mightier than the sword. But to uh to keep moving, let's say, then our heroes encounter a frozen lake and Goku had never seen one before. He's surprised when Sano jumps onto it. He says, "Whoa, you're walking on the water." And both Ader and Sano tell him it's just frozen. They all go on the water. Goku slips a little bit, and Ader makes a huge crack because he's so massive.
Because he's so thick.
He's so thick. And Murasaki attempts to follow, only after uh, only after iterating his arrogance by saying only an imbecile would not know what ice is. Only after that does he crash through the ice and into the frozen water
Right. This that
below.
pride cometh before the fall. The
Well, it's
irony for the
spelled out,
character,
right?
right?
Exactly, it's spelled out. And so he falls in. Our heroes wait around, and there's a great line I think Sano has that says, "It was just someone's imagination,"
Oh, must have been my
which
imagination.
reminds me of if anyone's seen the Joel Haver video, uh, must have had too much elixir.
Yeah.
So it's just a moment that's it's kind of a meme, right? Where people in video games or shows, right? They
Yeah.
hear
Like I
something and
can
like,
hear the Sonic
oh,
music on this
just
scene
my
where it's like
imagination.
bum 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 bum.
Yes, exactly. And so Murasaki is under the water. He eventually gets out, and the heroes continue on towards Flap's house. Anything else here?
No.
I didn't think so. Let's get to this. And so then we see Murasaki is dressed as a bear, and he is following our heroes as they cross over the last ridge to Flap's little cottage in the forest.
It's uh it's pretty funny. It's continuing this theme of Murasaki's deception and his hiding inside of different things, right? And in this instantiation, he's hiding inside this like idea of a bear. And so he makes himself endeared. It's funny in the English because he's like, just a bear.
I'm just a circus bear, and he's like balancing on his head and shit. Like, oh, it's good. It's good.
But what do you think about the idea that he makes himself look like a bear? specifically? Like, do you think there's any significance to that?
How he disguises himself as a bear specifically.
Yeah, like, does it matter that he chose to be a bear? Or is it just that he wants to look like he fits in still?
I mean, I think it is that he wants to fit in, but I'm curious if you have analysis to why he's a bear.
I don't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, hmm,
It's just funny, right?
it
Whenever someone
is,
dresses up as an
and that's the
animal,
other
it
thing.
seems to,
It's hard to even decipher because I know that this part is filler, right?
yeah.
So it's hard to tell if there was really a lot of thought to it.
I want to
Um,
hold it up to the test just in case there is anything we've taken for granted because
I'm
it's so
yeah, and I'm
easy.
trying to think what qualities, let's say, of a bear would be significant to it. Like bears aren't deceptive,
Yeah,
right? So I mean
because I can't think of anything that
that's
connects
like a
there.
major strike right there,
Yeah.
right? Bears are powerful, which is kind of what Murasaki wants to appear powerful. Um, but he appears goofy, like trained. I don't know.
It's really slapstick, isn't it?
It's kind of
Because especially
strange.
because once they turn around, he falls over and he starts rolling down the hill. And then he crashes into a tree and the snow drops on him and then they walk by and
Like
it's
what a
very
weird
like
bear.
it's almost like Saturday morning cartoon slapstick comedy, right?
Yeah, interesting question. Interesting question. I'm not sure.
I don't think there's
I
much
don't
to it.
have any analysis of it beyond what we've already stated. And then they go and they meet Dr. Flappe. Now, Dr. Flappe, he's in this cottage sequestered alone in the mountains. So obviously we can see a couple of bits of symbolism there, well, along with the snow. In the mountains, right, he's higher up on the hierarchy. In the forest, he's embraced himself in both chaos and solitude, right? With the snow, it's that purity. He's able to discover and reflect freely because he's also alone. It's kind of they kind of stack on each other what he's representing here. And as we see him, that he at first tells them that the Red Ribbon armies had no contact with them or anything like that. He invites them in. They go and they sit around the fire. Anything else I think to say here?
It's
As
just
far
it's
as what
interesting,
happens.
his immediate lie that the Red Ribbon Army has taken no interest in the village, which we find out later is not true. And in the English version of it, in the dub, he he's like, identify yourself or who goes there or something like that. Whereas I think in the original dub, he's just like, who are you? So he's kind of got more of an aggressive attitude in the English, but I think that he's supposed to be interpreted as a little bit more like mm, gruff.
Yeah, and I mean, I think he was introduced earlier as like a hermit, right? He's not very social.
Hmm.
He's and like I said, he's in solitude. Um, but he's able to reflect in that solitude with the water around him, the snow, and being in the forest, right? That constant struggle with chaos, and in the mountains. It all kind of plays into the symbolism um, of each other, each
Hmm.
piece of it. And he does lie. He does say that the Red Ribbon Army has taken no interest in him. So then we see what actually is the case here. And it turns out that Murasaki has taken an interest in Dr. Flap, and that Dr. Flap built number 8, which, even though later on it's retconned, for now we're going to analyze what we've seen as far as the show. And we see that Dr. Flap built 8 under duress.
Well, we don't
General
know
White,
necessarily why just yet, right? Sort of a revelation at the end of the episode, though. We do find out that it wasn't by choice, but it was under duress for the Red Ribbon Army.
yes. And so I guess we'll just continue there. And so what happens is Dr. Flap goes back to get a blanket after he invites them in, and Sano is suspicious because it takes him like 10 minutes. In the meantime, he's talking with Murasaki, who wants him to get the Dragon Balls from Goku.
Well, it's interesting because the first thing that he says to him is he says, "Oh, it's you." He recognizes Murasaki immediately, and so the first thing we see is that he was lying about the Red Ribbon Army because here is a Red Ribbon Army assassin and they recognize each other. And so he calls him out immediately and says, "Because you're the one that built 8." And then it flashes back and shows a scene of the three of them, right? Standing around as 8 is woken up.
And then immediately after that, Sano is suspicious. She
Mhm.
comes into the room and is snatched up by Murasaki, who, and here's the flashback, who threatens her unless the professor does what he wants. And meanwhile, Goku's asleep and Aders is just chilling out. Right? He's just chilling out in the front room.
Yeah, I think he has fallen asleep too right now.
Oh, okay, yeah. And so then the professor goes and snatches the Dragon Balls, and 8 wakes up. Goku wakes up,
Well, Goku doesn't wake up right away. 8 wakes up and sees him taking them and says, "What are you doing?"
and then he runs off, runs back to the room. 8 smashes down the doorway to come to Sano's rescue.
When Sano screams, he recognizes her voice and says, "That's Snow," and then bursts through the door and comes crashing in.
And so then he does do that, but not before the professor is able to hand off the Dragon Balls to Murasaki, who bursts out the window and seemingly escapes.
And then Goku wanders in right here, half asleep, going, "What's going on, guys?"
And so we see here, right, that this I want to say, well, we can't really establish too much without knowing the end, but this professor or this
Doctor.
doctor, yes, he is representing that spirit which obeys for the sake of discovery, as far as we know. He is a doctor. He is doing these experiments, and that's kind of the Frankenstein vibe that we've gotten from this whole 8, right? We haven't met the Dr. Frankenstein. Now here he is.
And we're sort of getting some insight into him being this um reluctant participant in everything that went on,
But
right?
also he's duplicitous. We've seen him lie multiple times already,
Mhm.
right? And so um
Well, one thing that he does is he tells him to go and steal the Dragon Ball from Goku, and he immediately tells him no. And so we see, even though he had done it before, that he's not necessarily aligned with the Red Ribbon Army
well,
right now.
especially now that that Muscle Tower is gone, right? And
Hmm.
he works specifically with White and Murasaki to build 8. White's not here anymore.
Right.
But I just wanted to mention that that's what he is doing, and this is that deceit still coming back to bite the doctor, because the doctor has not been forthright with the community, right? He hasn't told them that he made number 8. He hasn't told them that he helped the Red Ribbon Army.
Right. And he hasn't told them
And that's
that he created
exactly
this
why
bomb.
the personified version of the deception made manifest by General White, because the professor didn't, or the doctor didn't want to tell the village. That's why this spirit, this ghost, is haunting our good doctor here.
Right. And the truth comes knocking, right? With Goku in tow.
And so Goku then arrives wanting to answer that call to the truth. And what is the truth? That his knapsack had been stolen. Whoa. And so Murasaki rides away on his what do you call it? Jet ski? No.
His snowmobile.
Snowmobile.
Yeah.
Not jet ski. What? No, it's
Snow
not a
ski.
snowmobile. What is that called? It's called something else, but
A big snow bike.
anyways, he rides off on it. Goku chases after him, but can't quite catch him. So instead, he uses the truth distilled and forces it to defeat his foe here. He uses the Kamehameha wave. He
He
speaks magical words and erases the deception by using it. And in fact, if you notice, he never used the Kamehameha wave against Murasaki before, or else it would have obliterated him just like it does now.
Oh, it's great too because the way that he uses it is it's almost like he calls to the mountain to come down upon Murasaki and bury him under the mountain, right? He calls to the hierarchy to cast him down underneath the hierarchy for his arrogance and his ego
Well,
and
and also how measly this deception alone has manifested itself, because
yeah,
without White, without Metallotron, without Booyon, without Muscle Tower, Murasaki's not that much. And so, of course, putting him back in his place using the hierarchy is what Goku does, and that's the truth, right?
that's the truth
That you are
appealing to the
lower
yeah.
and you're not even worth it. You're kind of out of the story. See you later.
Yeah, appealing to the nature of the hierarchy to say like, look honestly where you are. Look honestly where you fit into this story at this point because I you were not able to stand up to my mode of being and here you are still.
Exactly. And so that kind of wraps up that Murasaki arc. And the last thing we see is that Goku and the gang have returned. They
Well,
leave Dr.
Goku gets
Frapp.
his he gets his bag back that was stolen,
Yes.
and we find out that it was his lunch, and he had left the Dragon Balls back at the cabin.
That's right. That's right.
And so it's played up as a big gag. This is definitely, I think, an aspect of it being a filler episode, right?
Oh, that's right. And Murasaki's actually not dead yet. There's a specific reason for that. So we see Dr. Frapp. He's taking out Dr. Flap. Sorry, he's
Doctor
taking out
Flappuccino.
Flavicino. He's taking out the bomb from 8, and it's like beeping, and Goku decides to throw it somewhere where no one will see it, and he throws it off into the distance where it
Yes.
lands upon Murasaki, and that's a specific reason that Murasaki's own malevolence is turned against him. His arrogance, his deceit, and malevolence have eventually come back to destroy him.
Well, again, look at Murasaki as a persona, right? He is this living persona of Muscle Tower, this uh, myth, this meme of a man going around trying to be as intimidating based on his status. And the way that he's destroyed ultimately is that malice lands on his face, right? On the persona. It lands on his face and
And now with the persona destroyed, there's nothing left. That's all there was to begin with.
right, that hard exterior. It's crazy whenever it shows the bomb explode because it's just a fountain of blood in the background. I mean, he is obliterated.
He's dead, dead,
It
long
does not look
dead.
like just an explosion. It literally looks like a straight up God of War style fountain of blood in the background.
But I will say, unfortunately, he is not.
God, just look at it.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Mortal
So
Kombat.
yeah, Mortal Kombat. So they leave Dr. Flap. He's unable to fix the dragon radar, and I think that's significant. It's to say that the ancestral wisdom of this small village, represented there in Dr. Flap, is not sufficient enough to be able to find it's not the wisdom of wisdoms. It's not the
It's not
wisdom
a
that's able to
regenerative
find out other
wisdom.
wisdoms, right? It's not the regenerative wisdom of, let's say, that which comes from the feminine chaotic, which can provide that eternal wisdom, because as long as you come up against that chaos, you're generating new wisdom. And that's exactly what Bluma is able to do for Goku. And in fact, I think that's an excellent segue, because we're going to see Goku looking for just that spirit in the next episode.
And he does call it out. He says, well, I guess I'm just going to have to go find Bulma to get this thing fixed.
Yes. Anything else we want to say for this filler episode, which we spent 34 minutes on?
It was a little bit longer than I thought. I like that there's still just enough meat on that bone with the filler
The
episodes, right?
blood fountain. It just gets me every time. Go
It's
ahead.
just it's surprising. But yeah, there's always just enough meat on that bone, right? On a filler episode where you can say like, well, I still want this to be in the story, obviously.
Yeah, there's a little gristle, there's a little fat,
Yeah.
but it's in the right spirit, is what I wanna emphasize. And so we kind of bring this Northern Arc, even though Muscle Tower was not in this, but we bring the Northern Arc, and we bring General White, Ader. We bring all of that to a close here with the
Um,
last episode, and we're gonna move on.
I do want to point
Well,
out the scene where he is taking the bomb off of his heart, right? The sort of ironic humor of he's just got a screwdriver and he's just unscrewing two
from a
screws.
green heart. That's
Is
it.
it's almost overly simplistic, but then the fact that he drops it after he does it um is a little bit telling, right? It's sort of his nervousness and also
Oh
his
yeah, that is something we do need to mention.
because it's actually Goku's presence that saves Ader at the end of the day. And
It saves them all.
and then immediately after
It
that,
could all been a blood fountain.
Ader is then thanking Dr. Flap for thanking him, right? So there's this sort of like,
Well, that is to say, right, that destructive nature implanted by being the creation of a despot, right? Knowing that the very existence that a person is inhabiting is that which is created by authoritarian means, unnaturally supported, right? All that
mhm,
stuff is self-destructory. Self-destructory? Is that a word?
self-destructive.
There we go. Self-destructive. And so and it can be used in a way too. This strength manifest in eight, in a malevolent way, and all of that is pretty much embodied in the bomb. And so when the wisdom of the village reaches in and removes that destructive nature, right? It's not enough, and that's another thing to say that he's not able to fix the dragon radar. By the same token, he's not able to keep hold of that
Well, in the
malevolence.
same way,
But
Namu
who
wasn't enough
can,
to get the Oasis, right?
right, and who can hold malevolence? Who can deal with malevolence?
Right, the
The
hero.
hero. And so Goku grabs it, saves everyone,
Right, it's that
throws it.
same instantiation that we sort of saw with Namu, right? Where it's like,
Well, we see
in and of
here
himself, he couldn't actually
well,
get that regenerative water. He
it
couldn't.
and it's also to say that this ancestral spirit is a lower on the hierarchy than both Roshi and a very exciting ancestral spirit that we're going to meet in the next couple episodes. I'm very excited about.
Oh yeah,
It's huge. So tune in because there's some non-filler coming up that will change the entire ball game of this show.
I'm excited.
Anyways, if you liked what you heard, please give us a like, subscribe, subscriunga.
Clunga the bunga,
Actually, I was gonna say what is it?
scrungle.
Scrumble.
Yeah, give us a scrumble.
We're
on
also on
Scrumble.
Rumble, so give us a scrumble.
Yep. Thanks for the scrungles.
Thanks. Anyways, if you liked what you heard, give us a like, subscribe. We do episodes on Sunday and usually Tuesdays. We're thinking of kind of expanding that probably to 3 days a week. I'm gonna have to talk to Brock about it if we can output more because there's a significant drop on days that we don't upload. I think that's part of the YouTube algorithm.
Just part of the game.
Anyhow, I'm your host on the left, Al,
I'm your host on the right, Brock.
and we wish everyone a good night.
The flying nimbus. Am I really ready to part with it? Why not? If you can ride it, it's yours. The flying nimbus. It can fly you wherever you want. If you can ride it, it's yours. Come to me, flying nimbus. Where is that cloud? Oh, there it is. It's about time.